Welcome to the Grow Your Money podcast, where we're on a mission to change how we talk about money. Our fireside chats are the heart of our show, bringing the energy and excitement of in-person events straight to your ears. We aim to connect you with inspiring voices and stories that matter, sharing relatable experiences and insights that will transform your financial life. But this isn't your typical money show. We look at the emotional, psychological, and cultural factors that shape our relationship with money. So hit subscribe and join us for another episode of the Grow Your Money podcast.
Welcome to Scottish Business Network podcasts. I'm Christine Essen, co-founder of Scottish Business Network, and I'm delighted to be jointly recording these podcasts with my SBN member, Fraser Allen. And today I am equally delighted to welcome Tynah Matembe, CEO and founder of MoneyMatiX. Named by the Scotsman newspaper in 2020 as one of the top 5 most important players in Scottish fintech. Tynah is a Saltire Fellow, a chartered banker and a lawyer, and has worked in UK financial services and internationally for the United Nations. But Tynah in 2018 identified a gap in financial capability and enterprise education within communities that had migrated to Scotland. And she was especially concerned about the lack of good financial role models in communities and how their young people's view about money were distorted. So MoneyMatiX was created to empower communities to become financially independent. Welcome, Tynah.
Thank you so much, Christine, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Delighted. Now, Tynah, as I always start, what's the view from your window today?
I have a beautiful view of the Edinburgh Waverley train station because from where I am, I can see the castle, just a little bit of the castle, and not the train tracks, but the signs leading to the train station. So a beautiful view. And the sun's out in Edinburgh.
Oh, isn't the sun always shining in Edinburgh, says the Glaswegian here. That's a lovely view. And as people are listening to this across the world, I'm quite sure they can picture where you are, Tynah. So Edinburgh wasn't where you originally started off in life. Tell me a bit about where did you grow up and what was family life like for you, Tynah?
Oh, thank you for the question, Christine. Absolutely. I grew up in sunny Uganda, and I mean that sunnily, 23 to 24 degrees on average all year round. It's a tropical country that goes across the equator. So sleeveless tops, shorts, that's the kind of outdoor play all day, most days. That's how I grew up. I'm one of 4. I'm the eldest of 4 children. And my mom and dad were a nuclear family born and raised in Uganda, very entrepreneurially driven. I always keep teasing my parents because I was sitting at a boardroom table from the age of 4 or 5. From I could speak, we would make decisions about the business. My parents ran a textile industry in Uganda. So we were sitting down and taking part in running the company, or so we thought. But very entrepreneurially driven. Primary school and secondary school in Uganda, as well as university. Actually, my first degree was in Uganda as well. So that's a bit about where I grew up and my upbringing.
Well, my next question is about early years and the shaping of your early years. But the shaping of your early years sounds that it was your mum and dad and their own businesses. Did that influence your career choice, Tynah?
Absolutely did. For one thing, we were constantly creatively looking to solve problems. So I've always been, if there's a problem, we need to find a solution, and absolutely the solution sits with us. So don't wait for anyone else to make it happen. You can do it yourself. Go out and use the resources you have to make the most of a situation. And one of the things my mom would always say is, your resources are all you've got, so make it work. Your network is your net worth. We did that a lot, because for business, when you're running a business in Uganda, it's very different to running it out here. But you're as good as your word. Your trust and honesty are a very key part of doing good business or succeeding. So we're always at a golf club, sitting and trying to make relationships and be good for who we were. So yeah, grew up just really always knowing that if there's a problem, I need to sort out the resources and make that problem go away, basically.
Very interesting, and that piece about trust and network, I think, it's such a key element of business, Tynah, and one I'm sure you've brought through your career. But that career started, you studied law at university in Uganda, and then, am I right in saying your first job was with the World Food Programme as an analyst in Uganda? Are you able to share more about this interesting role? What attracted this qualified lawyer to work for the World Food Programme?
Absolutely, yes. So the UN was always something that fascinated me. We had done a lot around international law, and I always had this fascination about how law worked in different countries, how policies are shaped around that sort of thing. So I had applied for an internship in my fourth year at university, and so I had the opportunity to do something called the Law Development Center, where you go and choose an area of practice. So international law was what I was keen to do. So I ended up in the UN, and interestingly, working on a food program, sustainability project around helping people to not just receive aid, because again, one of the things that we were always keen to look at as lawyers was the impact and effects of aid on countries and communities. So taking people away from the charity model, where we're trying to say, let's not give people a fish, let's teach them to fish. And literally, the project I was working on was a fish pond project, where we were trying to enable communities to learn how to do fish farming, so that they would not have to continually depend on aid from the UN, from the World Food Programme. So I'd look at policies and analyze them, and also looking at impact and what that looks like, longer term. Very interesting, very, very humbling job that was, because it took me out of my comfort zone. I had grown up in the city, in the capital, fairly middle class, I would say, and I had never really connected at the grassroots, so to speak, until that time. That was my first actual grassroots engagement, because you were setting up these fish farms in very, very rural parts of the country, sometimes actually across borders, but the most rural places with no electricity, with people just trying to come up. And that was my first look at the grassroots, as it was, because I had grown up in the city. So very interesting job.
Absolutely, and I can already see, because I know how this story develops, Tynah, but I can already see that grassroots level of working has impacted on you in your career later on. But then it was all change, Tynah, as you and I have discussed. You came to the UK on the highly skilled migrant programme visa and arrived in the UK. Tell me a bit more about that visa, and what was it that attracted this lawyer with this great work experience today? What attracted you to that visa programme?
So interestingly and funnily enough, it was on a whim, first of all. When my husband had proposed to me, I had told him one of the key things was we were going to have try and raise children outside Africa. That was just this thing that was just a joke at first. And then we put our CVs online. My husband is an accountant. His background is accountancy, and he's a pretty good accountant as well. So when we put our CVs online, he got headhunted by a recruiter, interestingly based in Edinburgh, who was keen to have us come up. And so we had to find a way to come through, and there was this highly skilled migrant program, which was basically attracting professionals who met a certain criteria to come out here on a 2-year visa. And after that, if you are meeting the points and earning the amount of money that the visa required, you could stay on for another 3 years. And then we had the choice to become permanent residents. So that's the very uninteresting or funny way we came. So applied for this highly skilled migrant visa and came initially hoping to stay in London. But all the work, and I keep teasing Andrea and saying she must have had this up her sleeve when she headhunted us. She knew she wanted us up in Scotland where she was, but she had eased us into it to say, oh, London's fine, but come and try out Scotland. And of course, when you come to Scotland, we just could not justify going back down to London. So that's how we ended up becoming properly Scottish.
Oh, and we are so blessed to have you here, Tynah. Absolutely. And I'm so delighted that the joys of London didn't detract from coming to Scotland. But again, as you and I have discussed previously, it was a challenge for you, understandably, arriving in quite a different culture. And you found some challenges there at the beginning in struggling to connect with communities in Scotland. Now, you've a very interesting story to tell about how you engaged with the Ugandan diaspora here in Scotland. Can you share a bit more about that, Tynah?
Absolutely. So when we came and settled here and got jobs, we started working. I was working for a bank, and my husband was interestingly working for the same bank, for the Royal Bank at the time, but doing very different roles. It was awesome. We were, working, but we didn't know anyone in Edinburgh, Scotland. And what I found very interesting was that work and home life or outside work life was very, very different. Typically in Uganda, you make all your friends at work or school. You've grown up you've gone to the same schools. I was in a couple of boarding schools, where you have a friend group already made for you. And here we were trying to make friends at the workplace, and would invite people to come home for a coffee, and no one would agree. Everyone would find it strange. They want to stop either at work or go to a pub. And for me, a true invitation of friendship was having you come to my house and cook a meal, and then you invite me to come to your house. Let's see how we live, that sort of thing. So I'd get very offended when no one would ask me to go to their house. It's like, how are we just at work and we're smiling and laughing, but it doesn't go any further. It's crazy. And so we had that yearning and very deep loneliness for several years, actually. We had a daughter, and it was just us. Our parents came over to support us with that, but we never had any real deep connections. And one day, our daughter was 1, so we'd been here about maybe 2.5 years at this point, and we're in the Asda car park in Livingstone, trying to go and get our shopping, and I'm putting the child in the trolley, and I see my husband running off in a direction, and I'm like, yep, he's lost the plot for sure, because I don't know where he's going, but he's going really quickly. And about 20 minutes later, he comes back to the car park, to the car where I'm still stranded. He's gone off with the keys, mind you, so I can't leave the car. I'm with the baby in the car park. He's run off. I'm do we need to call the police? Has he gone mad, And he comes back with a couple. And what had happened was he had a lady speaking a dialect from Uganda called Luganda. It's a language from Uganda, and he hadn't had the language in 2.5 years. So when he had the lady talking and she was walking towards the doors, he literally ran after her. He was like, I don't care who you are. You have to know that I'm from Uganda. How are you doing today? And they were friendly, bless them. We're still friends to this day. We got to know them. They had a party coming up. They had a baptism for their child at the weekend. They invited us over. We went over, and how long have you been here? Over 2 years, and we've never met anyone. We've never eaten the food here. So we got talking about, my goodness, what would it be like if we had an idea of just everyone bringing some ethnic or authentic food and, just having a party, because there must be many people in this situation. And there's so many other people from the diaspora that we've just never met. And yes, that's how that started. That's how that journey went. And from that, we went ahead to make we arranged a party. We thought we are going to be just 20 or 30 people at a potluck. Had several hundred in a hall. That was my introduction to health and safety. Because in Uganda, if you want to make a party, you just turn up, bring the food, people, and music, and that's it. No time limits, no numbers. So, yes, that was my interesting segue into community in the UK.
And I think that is such an important story because, in a very small way, I had a similar experience moving from Scotland down to London. And you're right, when you're only meeting people through work situations, and particularly here in London, where everybody is spread miles around, that it may seem a small thing to people who've only ever lived in their same communities or upbringing. But your point there about inviting someone to your home, because that is back to your comment about trust, but it's such a big thing. I know it was several years before I was invited into somebody's home here in London for dinner. And it was such a big thing that, and I don't think people realise quite how important that is, Tynah. Is that fair?
Absolutely, absolutely, because it's and especially where it's a sign of, yes, I've accepted you, you're welcome into my home, and never having that invitation just makes you feel not outcast per se, but on the fringe of society.
Yeah. Oh, I completely empathise with you, Tynah, there. But you built this community. Meanwhile, you and your husband were working your careers in the financial services at RBS. But another idea was running alongside that, Tynah, Passion for Fusion. Can you tell us a bit more about this initiative?
Absolutely, yes. So that springs on from the story with when we had the food at the potluck. We had there's a Ugandan Independence Day. It's usually the 7th of October, the 9th of October. It is the 9th of October every year. And so again, based on the back of that, we're like, oh, we could do a celebration and try and celebrate culture and that. And we started doing these events. And because we were the ones that had done the event, the first time, everyone keeps looking at you from the community. It went really well. We had a lot of dancing and music and food and community. So many Africans of different, from different countries all turned up, and it was such a good night. But then the community starts looking to you to solve other problems. Guys, you've done this. You've put the party together. We're really struggling with this type of thing. So can you help us to do this? And by the way, the children also need to engage more often. So you automatically find yourselves becoming community leaders, unknown to us. We started off wanting to just do a party and have a bit of fun, but you start being the go-to for the community. So one of the key things was that young people were not engaging as well. So we're trying to put on activities for youth, And so we set up a thing, Passion for Fusion, to try and advocate for young people, getting them involved, getting them out and about. So sports and the arts. The first two projects we did were an arts project, trying to get them to understand their history. So we did something called Colors of Africa, where we were talking about roots, and we talked about the different parts of Africa and what that looks like. So a bit of history and education, and also sports activities. So to try and get young people involved in the community. And that grew arms and legs. We could no longer hold it informally. We had to set up as an organization and formalize that. And that's how that got set up.
And am I right in saying Passion for Fusion, while you're not involved in it, is still going at the moment, Tynah?
Absolutely, yes. They still run activities for young people, sports activities especially, and the clubs have grown so much. Young people from all sorts of ethnic backgrounds, so it's still up and running. It's going strong, and yes, it's awesome work in the communities.
So there you are. You're the professional in the financial services. You're a community leader, more by default than you discovered you were. Passion for fusion is running along. But am I right in saying, Tynah, there was also another idea that you were becoming aware of, which then led to some quite pivotal moments for you, the Saltire programme and MoneyMatiX moment. What was the journey from RBS to MoneyMatiX and in between the Saltire programme?
Absolutely. Good question. So as this was all happening, remember I told you the Kappa conversation was my daughter was around 2 to 3 at the time. So by this time, Passion for Fusion's going. I'm still at RBS and that, and she's turning around 7, 8 at the time. And we start noticing the big disconnect in her understanding of money and our own. So growing up, money was just this second nature thing. We talked about it at the table. I mean, I was saying to you, I was at a boardroom table from 5. You're talking about problem solving, you're budgeting, they're telling you there's, resources that need to be bought. So money and those conversations were second nature to me. And cash was very physical. We either had cash, we had sales, or there was no money, and therefore it was something that was tangible. My daughter money to her was this magic wand that we had on cards. The cards were just magic wands. She could magic it and a toy would come up, and there was just no real and seeming understanding of money. And when I went out to the communities, I found that many of the other parents from the immigrant communities were struggling with the very same problem. Twofold. One, either themselves having come and been trapped by that, because when you come here, and it happened to us as well, there's so much debt in front of it. Debt seems so easy to take up. You can take chairs on hire purchase. That was absolutely crazy. You can get a TV on credit. That was not something we grew up with. And there's this very different relationship with money and banking that either for the parents that we were chatting to were either had been trapped by that and got into debt, which means they were very heavily indebted and had no way of translating good money habits to their young people, or they just had never had these conversations of money because money was so different from where they were coming from to where they were. So it was a big gap in the market, and we just thought, my goodness, this is serious. We need to be helping young people to understand money for what it really is. Yes, the UK has great advantages. You have more access to your banker. There's more access to credit and that. But hey, it comes with responsibilities, and someone has to know that from an early age. So, that just raised this whole other host of things. And with my background in finance, I was like, this has to be done properly because we are leading on the territory of financial education, financial well-being. There's going to be regulations in place. We need to do this properly. And so what I did then, I was looking for, because I knew how to do business in Africa. I was, put me in Africa any day, put me in Uganda at a heartbeat. I have the trust already. I have the honesty. I have the network. I'll be able to get my way around. I had no way of understanding how to do it in the UK. So I recognized that I needed to tap into my mom's favorite statement, my network is my net worth. I thought, well, I need to create some sort of network here. I need to understand, one, how business is done here. What does trust look like? What does running a business look like? And I need people that can vouch for me. So I came across the Saltire Fellowship, awesome program, got invited to a few interviews for that. And that's how I got involved with the Saltire Fellowship, got a place, and left RBS to go and do the fellowship, because at that point, I knew for sure that MoneyMatiX had to be something that I could, I had to be excellent. I felt like it had to be excellent for the UK standard. And I wasn't sure that I could translate that with my Ugandan background. So I knew I was good from a Ugandan perspective, but was I good for the UK? I needed to test that. So the Saltire Fellowship, awesome program. It's an MBA-styled practical business leadership program. Went away to the States, immersing ourselves in business, understanding very, very interesting thing that sticks with me till today. I grew up thinking that copying was bad, copying someone is not great. You want to be authentic and original. Well, the saltier taught me that no, the key thing here is to learn from other people around you and see how you can add value. Very different mindset from how I had been brought up. Copying to me was just not supposed to be done. So that was good, very good for networking, good for learning the business language. Again, from a Ugandan perspective, I speak literally. If I don't like something, I'll tell you, no, I don't like that. Here, someone will say that's interesting. That word interesting could mean a million things, and I didn't know this. So very, very interesting and very good grounding for setting up MoneyMatiX.
That is a fantastic story. There is so much there, Tynah, but it all gets back to about trust and networking. But I think the message that was coming through loud and clear, and you're referring to how you determined about understanding financial capability amongst youngsters, was within the immigrant community. And yet that is something, as you must have found now, as MoneyMatiX has grown, it's across all levels of society, this that you can just tap in rather than seeing hard cash. Is that your experience now, that it's across all divides and all groups and all ages?
Absolutely, Christine. I can't emphasize that enough. In fact, we have now progressed the work at MoneyMatiX to include families as a whole, and we actually do more work with adults and communities, because there's two key problems that happen. One, money not being a tangible thing, when you've been brought up with it being tangible, gives you this false sense of euphoria. You feel like, oh, it's something I can think about tomorrow. So you don't realize how much you're raking up in debt. It's a whole different way of doing things. And that very tap in, tap out makes things so accessible. And that means you become vulnerable much, much quicker. Then there is the whole other thing that we don't even ever realize, that here, most people who are immigrants and coming in here don't realize the impact of the footprint. Everything you're doing is being scored against you. Your postcode affects the amount of money you're going to pay in your insurance. How crazy is that? That your postcode can determine how much insurance you pay. Your postcode sometimes determines whether you're going to have to pay your energy bill by pay as you go or by, a monthly debit card. And that's things that you don't understand. So it's very important to provide education and help people to marry money in the UK with money from where they're coming from. Absolutely key, especially now with the cost of living crisis.
Absolutely. I mean, I know your business has been running 2018. Is that correct, Tynah, that it was established? But
that's right.
There is now even more requirement for all the reasons you've just so eloquently described, because of this cost of living crisis there. Given you're now 4 years into this business, where do you see the business going? Because we are facing into, potentially facing into significant deficit within the UK across all levels of society. We're all facing a cost of living crisis. Has the business adapted and your vision for it going forward because of current situations?
100%. Yes, Christine, you're quite right. So one of the things we've recognized, and a key part of what we do at MoneyMatiX, is understanding that financial struggle is all too real for everyone at the moment, but even more so for people from underrepresented communities. And so our focus is on helping, because there's so many systemic barriers that compound the problem and make preventable vulnerability an issue. The example I was giving you about not being in a system, not having a credit rating, or your postcode, which you probably went and rented a place not knowing how it was going to affect everything, can determine your financial footprint, right? So financial vulnerability is compounded for underrepresented communities who either don't have financial education or circumstantially just cannot be scored the same way as an average person. Then there is also a problem of lived experiences that cause exclusion. So there's a lot of financial exclusion. So what we are trying to do at MoneyMatiX, what we've been doing for the past couple of years, is trying to bridge that accessibility gap. So bridging the gap of helping organizations and financial services to understand communities better, while educating communities to understand services better. Because if you don't bridge that gap, you always have financial vulnerability. So to take an example, if I may, I'll share with you that we are going to run a Grow Your Money Challenge. That's the name of the community initiative that we have upcoming. And we have a few exciting partnerships up our sleeves. But the key concept here is coming around to have money conversations in a safe space where we help consumers to understand more about managing money in the current circumstances. How can you save money? Where are the deals? How can you basically put your money on a diet, so to speak? Limit household spending while saving towards preset financial goals that you may have. And then on the other side of that, showcasing businesses or organizations that are able to support communities to understand money better or who have fairer financial products. So if you look at banking or energy suppliers who are on fairer tariffs, leading communities to that. So acting as a bridge between communities and services that can bridge better outcomes.
So I'm nodding furiously in the background here, Tynah. So if individuals who are listening to this, how would we access MoneyMatiX? How would we access them? Are you in schools? Are you in community groups? Or where would we find this fantastic work that you're doing?
Yes, so we usually work with partner organizations. So right now we are delivering several programs at the grassroots. We work within the Wester Hills area in Glasgow. We work with other community groups. We also do work in schools. We go in and deliver youth programs in schools. The Grow Your Money Challenge is going to be a hybrid of online presence where we give people access to programs, but also in-person events. So we have something coming up on the 17th of November in person. And again, part of that is that whole aspirational interaction between community and industry, bringing them together to discuss things like, how the cost of living could be alleviated at the moment.
So we can find details on the website. Can you share the details of your website, Tynah?
Absolutely. It's MoneyMatiX.com, and we have the Grow Your Money Challenge. There's a tab specifically for the Grow Your Money Challenge on our website. We're also on LinkedIn quite a bit, and we are looking to start a campaign quite shortly for the challenge where people can sign up and start receiving emails, join our WhatsApp group, also. So if you go to MoneyMatiX, MoneyMatix.com, you can find a lot more information and contact us that way.
Fabulous. So sadly, as always, these conversations come to an end. And quick question for you. The piece of advice that you would give to that young Tynah Matembe sitting at the boardroom table of your parents' businesses, what piece of advice would you give your younger self?
I would not let perfect get in the way of good. We can always, you're always able to do something, you're always able to do something. And we all have a talent. We're all heroes. We're superheroes. We have it within us to do at least one thing well. So hold on to what you can do well and go for it. Don't let perfect get in the way of good.
Oh, yet another one that you'll hear me reciting along, Tynah. You're great for these. I'm always indebted to your mother with her comment about your network is your net worth, but that don't let perfect get in the way of doing good. I love that, Tynah. A couple of quick fire questions before we round up today. The first record you ever bought?
Was, believe it or not, a 50 Cent album, a 50-cent DVD, which interestingly, my 10-year-old went and downloaded off Spotify last week. So clearly I'm still in vogue.
You are the cool mum there, absolutely. Now I know you love travel, Tynah. I believe you have a scratch map of the world up in your home, and you're scratching off where you go. But of that world, global travel, what's your favourite place in the world, Tynah?
Most recently, I've been to Valencia, and that was absolutely beautiful. I loved it. But I would have to stay true to my roots and say Zanzibar is a beautiful white sands place to go.
Beautiful, beautiful. Tynah, it has been an absolute joy, as always, to connect with you today. And I have every day's a school day, and I've learned so much more about your fantastic business, MoneyMatiX. Really so relevant, and it's very interesting to hear the background of how it came about. Thank you for your time today. I wish you continued success, Tynah, as you so deserve, and look forward to hearing what happens next with the business.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. Always a pleasure connecting in with you, and the work you do is absolutely awesome. So well done to you and the team as well.
Thank you, Tynah. And that's all from this week's Scottish Business Network podcast. Tune in. We have another excellent speaker coming up in the next few weeks. And thank you, Tynah, and look forward to speaking with you all soon.
Thank you for listening to the Grow Your Money podcast. If you're looking to take actionable steps toward achieving your financial goals, visit MoneyMatiX.com. That is money, MATIX.com, and join our free Grow Your Money Challenge. Let's unite in the movement to inspire people to talk about money. Thank you for being a part of our community. We'll see you in the next episode.